Hey everybody, welcome back to Living Traditions Homestead. We're out by our pigs today. We've had an interesting couple of weeks with the pigs. We haven't given you guys an update on them in just a little while. Even though we're preparing for our first piglets on the homestead, recently something happened we weren't expecting.
Well, first let me explain how we've been raising pigs ever since we've been here on this homestead. We've had a lot of success raising our pigs with just electric wire in the woods. And prior to this year, we've just raised, 2 or now 3 pigs a year for meat for our family.
Right, just feeder pigs that we would buy from someone else,
right,
bring home, raise for about 6 months, and then process.
This is our first year to actually get into breeding of our own pigs. We have 2 sows and a boar for breeding, but we also bought 3 pigs, just feeder pigs, to raise up for meat for our family. A couple weeks ago, we told you how we were starting to have problems with Mildred, our pig, one of our breeder sows, getting out of the electric fenced area in the woods and just kind of escaping.
And ending up in our front yard.
Well, yes, twice that happened. And so we decided, well, it was just time to put her in the area, these pens here, for her to have her babies because she was due to have babies in early February. So we did that, and that solved the problem for her temporarily.
Well, about 10 days ago we were in the house and just having normal family time. I looked out the kitchen window and I saw Charlie standing out near our garage, which is not anywhere near where Charlie should be. So we came outside. It was actually a pretty cold day. We ran outside, didn't even put coats on or anything, round him up, and we were able to lure him back to his pen with just some feed. Now Charlie, is our boar. He is very strong. He's got tusks. I mean, Charlie's not going to go anywhere that you don't want Charlie to go. So we felt very good about the fact that we were actually able to get him back into his pen. He was still in that electrified area, in the woods. And we figured, okay, just a fluke. Every once in a while, something happens and they find their way out. Just a fluke, no big deal. Both the girls were still safe in their farrowing pens. We didn't think anything of it. Well, a few hours later, we found Charlie again out wandering around, except this time he had made his way over to Mildred, our sow.
So the second time that he got out, he was a lot less eager to go back to the pen. And he actually was acting differently than he normally does. He was very persistent about hanging out and trying to get to one of our sows, Mildred. He was foaming at the mouth, and she was actually really interested in him, which is behavior we have not seen out of her before.
Right. Now, prior to this, Mildred and Charlie had been together for about 2.5 months, so we were certain that Mildred was already pregnant, that he already bred her during those 2.5 months. So we weren't really sure why he was so determined to get to her that day. But after about an hour of trying to lure him away, we figured, you know what? It must be that she's in heat, and even though we thought she was pregnant, she must not be. So we decided just to open her gate and let Charlie back in with her, and lo and behold, she stood right there and let him breed her. So we were certain that, she wasn't bred in the first place.
Right. So Charlie has been in with Mildred here since then for about 10 days. And it's time for him to move out. This is supposed to be a farrowing area, and we don't want as much damage to the ground and stuff as is occurring because there are 2 pigs in there.
Right. Now, during the 2.5 months that Charlie and Mildred were together in the woods, we never once saw Mildred actually let him breed her. So we were just assuming that, that happened when we weren't around. But this time, now that we actually saw him be able to breed her, we feel confident that, she is going to be pregnant this time. It just means that for her, instead of having piglets in February like we were planning, she won't be having her piglets probably until May.
Now our second sow, Myrtle, she's the blonde pig back here. She has got to be pregnant.
Yeah.
She's getting big. It looks like she's actually getting close. We had calculated, because we saw Charlie breed her, we calculated that she should have her piglets about February 14th, so near Valentine's Day, and it does look like she's pregnant. She's getting much bigger. It looks like her milk might be starting to fill up and come in, so we're certain she's going to give birth.
So all of this to teach us a lesson and hopefully teach you guys a lesson. You know, for years we've been telling you that using the electric wire back in the woods was just an awesome way to contain the pigs. And we really feel like it is for feeder pigs. What we're learning about having pigs, though, that are sexually mature and wanting to breed is that they're an entirely different animal. I mean, they're just...
Well, their hormones affect them a lot more.
Right. They're just much more, you know, first of all, they're bigger.
Right.
You know, they're much bigger than the ones we raise for meat. And so they're much stronger. When they want to go somewhere, they're going to find a way to go somewhere, especially with just the electric wire. So we're going to continue to raise our feeder pigs every year with electric wire. But as far as our sows and our boar, from now on, they're going to be in pens made out of sturdy hog panels. And in fact, that's what we're going to be doing today. We're building a brand new pen for Charlie. It's time for him to get out of here. He's done his job here with Mildred. So let's go over. We're going to show you where we're going to build his new pen. It's going to be considerably bigger than the pen he used to have. And I think it's going to be a really nice area for him. The area behind us here is where we're going to build Charlie's new pen. Now, his new pen is going to be 32 feet wide by 64 feet long, which is about double the size of what he's had in the past. So we're really happy about that. For the most part, though, we're going to be reusing everything from his old pen. We're going to be reusing his feeding station, his automatic waterer, his shelter, and all of the hog panels and T-posts that we can.
In this project, we actually haven't had to buy anything. The things that we didn't already have in his shelter, we've just had extra of around the homestead, so that's been really nice. That doesn't happen very often.
Right? Yeah, it doesn't happen often that we don't have to go out and spend any money at all, but I'm glad that we didn't this time.
This pen area is going to give him, you know, not only a really nice area to wander around and dig and whatever, but it has a really nice patch of pine trees here, which he'll be able to lounge around in and get quite a bit more shade in the summer than he had in his previous pen.
So the first thing we're going to do is cut out some of the little cedar trees that are growing in this little patch of pine trees so that he has more...
Just to clear it out a
little.
little,
Just to clear it out a little bit so he can get in there a little better. And then after that, we're going to start on putting up the fences.
Putting this in the woods.
Just start a pile for now.
In this part of southern Missouri, the honeysuckle, the wild honeysuckle, is just out of control. It's an invasive species and it just climbs on everything. We're having a hard time getting some of these little trees out, and when we were pulling out the hog panels from Charlie's previous pen, man, they were like stuck because of all the vines.
Now that we have that area pretty well cleaned up, the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to bring two things over from his old pen with the tractor. We're going to bring over his feeding station, which also has the gate for the pen attached to it, and then we're going to bring over his shelter. The shelter is going to go right in these pine trees if I can get it in there with the tractor, and his feeding station is going to go kind of in one corner. So I'm going to go get those with the tractor. We'll see if we can get those as close as we can into place. We've gotten a lot of use out of that shelter over the years. We've used it for the pigs, we've used it for the goats. It's still working. Might need a new fresh coat of paint this summer, but other than that, it's still in pretty good shape. All right, let's bring over the feeding station. Now that we figured out exactly where we want the feeding station, I've moved it out of the way just a little bit. We're going to put in a couple T-posts and then a piece of hog panel behind the feeding station. I like to always put a piece of hog panel behind the feeding station just so that if, say, he gets a little ornery or rough and pushes the feeding station a little bit, he can't just get out of his pen. There's still fence behind it. So that's what we're going to do first. We're going to basically build this wall right here, this end of the pen, and then we'll get started on everything else. Well, this first side is done. The feeding station went into place perfectly. Looks like it's holding up really well. I built these about a year ago. We'll still need to hook up the automatic waterer that we have for him. I'll show you guys that in a little bit. We got the other three sides to put up, and I'm going to still, before we put up the other sides now, this is the side that I was a little worried about. Just, you know, we needed to get this side. We know where we wanted this. Everything else will kind of take care of itself. So I want to get in here with the tractor and dig a wallow for Charlie. In my experience, when you're building a pen for pigs, I like to come in with the bucket of the tractor and just dig a small wallow. If you dig what I call kind of a starter wallow, then the pigs will typically just expand upon that themselves. But if you don't dig anything at all, they'll dig one wherever they feel like it. At least by starting one for them, you kind of have some control over where it's going to be in the pen. So I always like to start one for them. They have fun making it bigger, but this way I control where it is in the pen. Alright, well, the ground here is very rocky and very hard in this area of the homestead, so this is about as much as I can do with my bucket. I could probably do more if I kept trying, but this will be plenty to get a good start for a wallow for Charlie. Once he realizes that water collects here, he will, use his nose to make this even bigger than it is now. So this will be perfect for him. Alright, from here on, we're going to move to putting up the rest of the fence. Well, the pen is finished. I am super happy with the way that it turned out. Again, this pen ended up being 32 feet wide, 64 feet long, and this is going to be just for our one pig, our boar, Charlie. In the old pen that we had Charlie in, he really didn't have a lot of shade, which made it pretty rough in the summer. He did have a little bit, but only certain times a day. I think in this pen he's going to have a lot more shade. He's got this nice little patch of pine trees right here that aren't very tall, so they will give him some shade. We've been able to put his shelter right inside of the pen. Now, this whole pen is on a slope. I don't know if you can tell that on YouTube or not, but it's on a slope, so that may look a little weird with the shelter at an angle, but that's just the way it's going to be. I guarantee Charlie's not going to care. We were able to get his wallow started for him, his feeding station, and I moved over his automatic waterer as well. These automatic waterers that we use are amazing. I absolutely love them. If you haven't seen them before, basically the way they work is you can either hook them to a water source or you can hook them to a gravity feed, which is what we have because we don't have water way out here. So we just have a barrel that I fill up with water. A hose runs over, and there's just this little bitty cup right here that when the pigs push their nose on it, this little cup fills up with water, and that's what they drink out of. And it makes their pen just so much cleaner because they're not basically playing in the water. We used to use the nipple style waters that screwed right into the side of the barrel, and the pigs over time would learn that if they just kind of kept their mouth on the little nipple thing, that water would run everywhere, and then they'd make a wallow right next to the waterer. And it was just a big mess. By doing this system, having it up on the platform and just this little cup, it completely eliminates that problem. So we're so happy with that.
Well, you guys, thanks so much for joining us as we work on this project. We're so excited to get it done, and we're so excited to have you guys along. Don't forget that the best way that you can help us here on the homestead is to share our videos on all your social media. It'd be a great help. Until next time, thanks so much for stopping by our homestead. Take care and God bless.
God bless.